The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
And welcome, wrestling fans, to the Ice Hour. This podcast is aimed at promoting the world of Division III college wrestling and is named for the late Hall of Fame coach Dave Eisenhower. Here we'll talk about topics and news that's relevant to those who compete for the love of the sport in Division III. The Ice Hour is sponsored by My House Sports Gear. Check out their line of wrestling gear and apparel at myhousesportsgear.com. Subscribe using your favorite podcasting app by going to matttalkonline.com/ice. Episode 24 of the Ice Hour D3 Wrestling Podcast. Been a while since we've last visited, but the Division III wrestling season is off and running. As a matter of fact, we're in a little bit of a lull now as we're approaching the Christmas holiday. The Desert Duels just finished up out in Las Vegas, but as we look towards March, because apparently in the sport of wrestling, it's the end of the year that matters, and the end of the year for Division III this year is the NCAA Championships in Cleveland, Ohio, and the host institution for that championship this year is Baldwin Wallace. Joining us today on the program, the head coach at Baldwin Wallace, Jamie Gibbs. Coach Gibbs, played a lot of phone tag to get this thing set up, but welcome to the program finally.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We got her done, though, didn't we?
Yeah, you guys are in an interesting position there in Cleveland because it's been a couple years since it's been back-to-back championships at the same site. The last time we had it in St. Louis, D2 and D1. We've had D2 and D1 go Omaha with 2-1s, and now we've got 3s-1s back-to-back weekends in Northeast Ohio, an area that loves wrestling. How amped are you for that 2 weekends of wrestling?
Yeah, I think it's we're excited. We're excited. I think especially with the state of Cleveland right now and what's going on, I think wrestling fans and especially Division III wrestling fans, my guess is we probably haven't been in such a major city, so it'd be a good situation.
You know, the sites that we've had the Division III championships the last couple of years, Cedar Rapids has been great, La Crosse has been great, but there's something about the teams, and this is, I guess, the more east it's been since Hershey, which was pretty cool. Being originally an East Coast guy, to get to go up to my old stomping grounds in Pennsylvania and Hershey and right there at the Giant Center. But having it in Ohio, where there is a large collection of Division III athletes that wrestle within colleges within the state of Ohio, and those who go off into schools in Pennsylvania and up into Michigan, or as the people in Ohio would say, that state up north. But why is Cleveland the right place for this Division III championships this year?
I think it's just a hotbed. It's a hotbed of wrestling. Fans are knowledgeable, and there's just not only the Ohio Athletic Conference. There's several other Division III teams, like you said, throughout Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana. So I think it's just a great location for Division III with all the East Coast teams and the school from the Midwest. So I'm expecting that teams should be able to travel pretty well, and we should be able to get it from the East and the West, all come together in Cleveland and put on a great championship.
Yeah, the venue is Public Auditorium, also known as Public Hall, a very, I guess the word is artistic-looking place. I mean, it's palatial, so to speak. It's got the old rock work, and it's just, it's got a stage on the end, and then it's got this just real history. We've had the U.S. Open there in the past. High school nationals used to be there. So a lot of wrestling tradition there. A week before the Division I championships head to Quicken Loans Arena. So as a Division III coach who ends your season, how excited to be like, I can just hang back and I don't have to travel anywhere for the Division I's the following week.
Yeah, pretty convenient. We're excited for our home fans, and I think logistically it's going to be a relief to not have to do all that. But now you trade off for some other work that goes into place when you're hosting, so probably a wash, maybe even a little more on the plate. But we knew that going into it, so it'll be a good thing.
Yeah, set up and tear down, always the fun part. Now, as we'll talk a little bit more about the Division III championships as we get closer to the end of the program, but talking about this season, your team, the Yellow Jackets, 11-1, national rank, just took your first loss over the weekend, but to a really tough Laura squad. They came in ranked number 4. That was a tight one. And I want to talk about where this program went from being, not even really receiving consideration in the national rankings when you arrived to its place in the top 10 right now. You guys, when you arrived, there was no postseason, and it wasn't exactly the easiest start for you there.
No, when I took over the program, there was about 6 to 10 kids on the on the team, and yeah, it was a struggle the first couple of years, and yeah, now we're going a different direction, so it's exciting, and we're looking for. I think the best is still yet to come.
Yeah, with that situation, it wasn't just you guys with no postseason. I believe the administration came in and said no postseason for anything. It was kind of an athletic overhaul, if you will.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. Yep. The president came in and looked at some things and took away our postseason for that year, and so yeah, all across athletics. So it was rough situation that we walked into, but we got through it, and I think came out stronger in the end. Adversity is good for guys if you handle it the right way. So we grew from it. We learned a lot and carrying some momentum into present day. So
yeah, I'm going to come back to that point as it being your first official head coaching job. But before you spent time there at Baldwin Wallace, you'd bounced around. You're from Iowa. You wrestled at Iowa Central and at Coe, so you've got the familiarity with the junior college Division III before coaching in Division II at UNC Pembroke in North Carolina. What is that experience like in Pembroke, North Carolina? That was the first time I met you. You were at Pembroke, but what's it like coaching wrestling in Pembroke, North Carolina?
It was good. I tell you what, I learned a lot as a head coach there. Great people, great school. And I left there and we had just placed the national duels at UNC Pembroke for the first time in school history, and then took over this job and just because I again, with it being a hotbed of wrestling and the location and the reputation of the school, I really felt and believed that this was a great place to raise a family and that we could win here. So, but Pembroke was good to us. We love it. Still got great friends there. In fact, Coach Johnson, who's the head coach there now, was my assistant for 5 years. So he's the right man for the job. And man, there's a lot of guys there that had a lot of success and during my 5 years with the program. So it was a lot of fun, taking over that program and leading it to where it was and where it is now, where it's going. So.
Yeah, I want to clarify something. I said that the Baldwin Wallace was your first job. Pembroke was your first head coaching job. Baldwin Wallace your first head job in Division III, which kind of leads to why leave a scholarship program in Division II for a non-scholarship program in Division III as a head coach?
Just a better fit for my family, and really believe that, again, being in the hotbed of wrestling. My wife is from Iowa. I'm from Iowa. So, Northeast Ohio just felt a lot like home, and there's a lot of more opportunities for my wife and what she does. So that was a big part of it. And during the interview process, it seemed to me like DW was serious about wrestling, and I just think there's better wrestling resources where I'm currently at. So. That was a big part of it. So, it's a great place to raise a family. Baldwin Wallace is great community, great area. So we're happy here.
One thing about the dynamics of North Carolina and Ohio is that obviously the wrestling culture there. A lot of Division I programs to contend within the state of North Carolina, whereas in the state of Ohio, you've got a couple D1s, but Ohio State gets a pick of the litter, and then Kent State, Ohio U coming in after that. And Cleveland State, of course, don't want to forget them because they're right there, right down the road in Cleveland. But when you look at the fertile recruiting grounds that you have as a Division III coach in Ohio, you've taken your roster from, you said 6 or 7 to 37. That's location.
Yeah, that and population. I mean, there's a ton of D2s around here, and you got your big time D1s, and it's a wrestling hotbed. People come from all over to recruit some of the best out of the greater Cleveland area. So, you got to work hard, but, there's a large population of kids too. So if you're out there doing your job, I think there's talent. There's talent.
When it comes to credentials, what type of kids are you typically looking at when you're at the Ohio State tournament, or if you're at neighboring states, and knowing that if you get somebody early, they're and they have a good season, a D2, a D1 scholarship program could come in and scoop them away.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and those are the kids that we need to be on. And so they got to be looking for the right fit, the right college wrestling experience that includes, the academic piece, the athletic piece, and the social piece, and a great balance of both. And we want to provide a Division I wrestling experience with the Division III personal touch. And if we're going to continue to get better, we got to find those kids that can wrestle at the Division I level. I've got a guy on my team that was a state champ in Ohio, and he had some Division I offers. Tom Ryan was in his living room. You know what I mean? So we need those kids that are looking for that, the balance of the academics, the athletics, and the social piece, and that are still serious about wrestling. So yeah, that's the nerve-wracking part. You can't control that piece like you can in Division II and Division I. So some of that stuff is out of your control, but I still think there's some of those type of kids that are looking for that. Division III wrestling real well. That's the way, those top teams have Division I talent. There's no doubt about it.
One of the misconceptions, I guess, or something that programs like yours and the teams that are rising to challenge the Augsburgs and the Wartburgs of the world is it's not just a place where D1 talent comes to land or hide. There's been good development of talent within Division III. One of those kids is actually one of your former wrestlers, a multiple-time All-American, has actually been on this show before, Jesse Gunter, and he's blind, and that presents a whole set of challenges from a coaching standpoint. What is the recruitment of that athlete like? And once you get him on campus and coaching him in the corner on probably the slowest wrestling matches you can ever be in the corner for, because every time there's separation, the whistle blows. But what positives was Jesse to the program, and what did you learn about yourself as a coach with having to coach a blind kid who was so successful?
Yeah, Jesse's an awesome story. There again, he in high school, he missed the state tournament 3 times. Was a state alternate 3 times, made it out his senior year, took third, beat a returning state champ for 3rd place. So we knew he was talented. And, so during the recruiting process for him was a little different. He was part of my very first recruiting class, so I'm still trying to learn the landscape and build a relationship with it. But, for him, there was so much more to that recruiting relationship because of him being blind and everything. So it's a pretty rewarding experience. We got him to overcome a lot, not only as a wrestler, but just as a young man, and how to be the best version of himself all the time. And, that guy's got a lot of challenges. But he was in position to win a national title 2 years in a row and came up short of his goals. But what an awesome kid and a great success story. And we're real proud of Jesse. And, now he's got bigger and better things. He's getting married here soon, so that's fun and exciting. He's still coming in the room, helping out. And so, yeah, Jesse was a huge success story for us.
We look at the landscape of Division III. A lot of Division III coaches wrestle Division III. You were one of those athletes. And now, coming from junior college, what were the reasons you chose co in the Division III level specifically?
Yeah, I had a buddy there, and was recruited there by their coaches and liked the location, and thought it was a real good fit for me. I think that's part of the reason why I came back to Division III too. When you were asking me that question about, Pembroke, why would you leave Division II? You know, my wife and I were both Division III athletes and had just an unbelievable experience. And I think the experience that Division III provides while still competing at a very, very high level is second to none. You know, and so I love being back in Division III.
Now, of course, they're competitors when you get on the mat, but is it kind of cool to look and see what Coach Ostendorp has done with your alma mater at Co, making them nationally competitive, nationally relevant?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. You know, he hired me for the school's first full-time assistant coaching job there. You know, the huge mentor of mine. He was in my wedding, you know, so he's had a huge impact on my life. And, you know, we still stay in touch to this day. And we've wrestled him a few different times. You know, once when I was at Pembroke, and, you know, we've wrestled him twice since I've been here. And so, yeah, 2 years ago out in Vegas. Then last year we ended up beating them in the national duel. So that was pretty neat and pretty rewarding as well.
Yeah, and has he ever? How many times did he throw the old Rulon Gardner stories out there? Because that's one that name tends to follow him around too.
It sure does, doesn't it? Yeah, he's never the one bringing it up. You know him at all. He's a pretty humble guy, and never going to hear him talk about himself too much. But yeah, he gets asked that all the time, doesn't he?
It's like, hey, aren't you the guy? Didn't you beat? You know, it's one of those things.
Yeah,
like,
he beat him for the third place match. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any signature wins over any names, so nobody's going to be like, "Hey, didn't you beat?" No, that was actually the Jason Bryant that went to Old Mill High School in Maryland. He was pretty good. Not the JV guy from Pecos, Virginia. By the way, there's 3 wrestlers in the area where I grew up that had the same name and a baseball player. So I got a little bit of that misappropriation. Unfortunately, I would like to have had some of that appropriation like Coach Ostendorp gets when he talks about beating Rulon Gardner. Now, circling back to Baldwin Wallace as a school. You know, a lot of private liberal arts schools that are around Division III. That's the largest of the divisions, and it's the fastest growing in terms of new programs each year. What's unique about Baldwin Wallace that allows you to recruit in a sea of Division III schools, especially within the state of Ohio?
Our location is prime. You know, we're in a western suburb, and you know, we're not tiny. We're about 4,000 students, so, you know, but we still have a great student to faculty ratio, like 13 to 1, 11 to 1, something like that. And, you know, so got over 80 majors. So it's, again, I think it's just, it's a real nice balance. There's tons of things to do around here. You know, you got downtown Cleveland not far away. You got the walleye capital of the world, Lake Erie, about 12 miles from here. You get the Cleveland Metro Parks right on campus. You know, so that there's just lots of, you kind of get a big campus feel, but yet you're still getting that, you know, the one-on-one classroom, you know, student to faculty ratio that the kids that are looking for Division III want. But there's just lots of things to do, you know. So I think a lot of other similar schools, you know, here there's just lots of things to do, and because there's lots of things to do, there's also access to a lot of internships and part-time jobs during the summer and off season for kids to access to help launch their career. I think that's one of the things that sets us apart from some of the other Division III schools.
One thing is that landscape is actually getting more competitive as there's new programs being added. Really? Otterbein is in its second year. We've also got Notre Dame College Division II and Lake Erie and Tiffin, those D2 schools, but Ohio Wesleyan's come on board. Wilmington's bringing their program back. Defiance is about to add. I mean, we've got a lot of good existing programs, and now from a coaching standpoint, yes, it makes the field a lot more competitive to recruit, but how positive is it for you and Baldwin Wallace to see that there's more programs, not just in Ohio in Division III, but the nation? I mean, we're gonna have this realignment discussion in like another 2 years if they keep adding this fast.
Yeah, Division III, no doubt. I think and then you just had a Division I school just add, which hopefully that becomes more of the norm as well, and just wrestling continuing to grow. So anytime programs are added, regardless of the division, it's just a good thing for wrestling. So it's awesome. I mean, it's getting to be like you said, it's getting to be very, very competitive recruiting wise, and but good for wrestling. Good for to be a high school wrestler in this region. So there's lots of options, and so I think it's a good thing.
Now, when we talk about the competitive nature of Baldwin Wallace, you've set school records the last couple of years, especially last year, 22-3 in dual meets, spending time in the top 10, competing in there, and of course challenging or trying to build a team that's going to challenge the Bergs, as they've won every title since, I think, the Nixon administration. Maybe not that long, but maybe that's when Don Murray was coaching. But as far as the Division III, trying to catch those programs, Loris is having a good year. You just wrestled them, had a tight one with Milliken. That's a reinstated program. Ferrum, Nate Yetzer's doing a great job out there. Lonnie Morris, Johnson Wills. The landscape of Division III it's not just the Iowa Conference dominating things anymore. What is it about Division III that you feel has made it more competitive and deeper than it's been in years?
Oh, I think administrators are seeing the value. 100%. The administrators are seeing the value of what wrestling brings to a campus. From the not just the athletic piece, but the business piece, the commute. Wrestlers are good dudes. It's they add to the campus value, and administrators are seeing that, and they get curious. They start asking questions, and I think that there's a lot of success stories. Our vice president of enrollment is now the vice president of enrollment at Ohio Wesleyan. What did she do? She started wrestling. So I think they're seeing the value of what wrestling brings to a campus community. So and with that goes increased resources, and so I think they're seeing some schools on the East Coast put forth some resources that rival some of the Midwest schools now. So wrestling's good out in the East Coast as well. So I think that's what you're seeing, Jason.
Circling back to the Division II thing for a minute and comparing resources, it's not something we hear. We hear a lot of comparisons. D1's got this, D1's got this, D1's got this, and D2's like, well, we got some scholarships, and then D3's got no scholarships. Now, comparing resources at a school like UNC Pembroke, which has a pretty good wrestling tradition, some limited scholarship money, versus a school like Baldwin Wallace, where the tuition price tag is going to pay for a lot of things, when you get enough students to come in. When you talk about resources, what are resources like between divisions? I mean, what do you need in D2 to be successful that you don't need in Division III, and vice versa?
Well, I would think that every place, is a little different. Where some Division II schools might need more operating budget, but I mean, across the landscape of Division II, if you got a healthy scholarship budget and you can bring in the talent, you can figure out the operating budget piece. And Division III, I think you need staffing. I think you need staffing and facilities. And budgets, you need it all. So,
from a fundraising standpoint, carrying 30 wrestlers on the roster, they're paying tuition. Of course, there's non-athletic grants and scholarships that come with that, but that's a large roster to manage. And you see a lot of the Division III staffs, a lot of volunteer coaches. How does that coaching structure work? And when you get a lot of alums that are on as volunteer coaches, or you get student coaches, kids that get hurt and so on. I mean, how do you basically spread the wealth in terms of keeping coaches involved so your 37 athletes can stay engaged?
Yeah. So, again, I think that's one of the great things that we have here at DW. We've been able to create a culture and an environment where, our graduates want to stick around and stay involved. And, because of our location, there's lots of jobs around, and we have some grad school options for them, so we can help further their career in education. And we get them involved with the development of the athlete. I think that's some of the best programs. Like you're talking about the Bergs, right? I can remember my first encounters with them and seeing all the coaches at the competition. So I think the more mentors you have for these young athletes, the better. And so, that's something that we have here in place, and feel fortunate enough to have such a great staff like we do here. They're unbelievable coaches, but they're even they're even better mentors of the type of kids you want your son to wrestle for. So
last year, the hot topic within Division III was the qualification system, rather the regional makeup of how the qualification system worked. That's been changed this year. Conferences are grouped together within regions. A more true geographic scent to it. Now, there's a couple outliers, with a couple New York schools being in New England and a couple of them not in that region. But overall, how did you feel that the realignment shook out?
Better. I don't know what the perfect answer is. Probably never going to have the perfect answer. But I think it's a little more balanced, and I think time will tell. I guess maybe it'd be more fair to ask me that question after it plays out a year, but it on paper it appears to be a little bit more balanced. But at the end of the day, I mean, as long as it's a little more spread out, and even like I said, I think Division III wrestling is growing east to west, and so or at least east to Midwest, right? And you're gonna have to win. You have to beat good kids to get to the national tournament, and so. I think you still gotta. I try not to get too caught up in all of that, and just wherever region we're in, we're gonna have to win big matches to get to the national tournament, and win big matches there to get on the award stand, win big matches to win championships. So try to simplify it for our athletes. Control what we can control, right?
Well, what you guys have controlled is a ton of winning. I mean, it's like going back to the 22-3 season. Why have you guys been so good recently? I mean, what has been your secret, with, if you can say it's a secret or not, that's taken you guys from modest obscurity in Division III, where there's a competitive landscape of outside of Wartburg and Augsburg, okay, who's going to be the next team to challenge, to Baldwin Wallace being thrown into that conversation as a top 10 program? I mean, why have you been able to get this team so good so fast?
I think we've gotten buy-in from our athletes. We've created an environment where kids want to compete. They want to make a year-round commitment to getting better. We've got some structure and resources set up for them to keep on competing, and so I think that's it. Just creating a competitive environment. And we've had buy-in from our guys. Guys that came here that wanted to get serious about it, and it's important to them. If wrestling's important to a kid, this could be a great place for it. And so I think we just have had good buy-in from our student athletes that we've recruited.
One thing I've always been kind of wondering about, and I haven't asked it very often to Division III coaches, is when you've got large rosters and you've got 10 spots, and you've got some teams are putting out B teams at some of these tournaments, and like the duels or the boots duels or things like that, where you get the second and third team guys some opportunity, keeping the athletes engaged, but also that winning culture. Kids want to be part of a winning culture. How do you keep the kid that's the third deck 25 pounder as part of the winning culture, or is the talent so to the point where you're fairly replaceable, and not replaceable in terms of like personnel wise, but like the drop off isn't as significant from 2 to 3 as it might have been in your earlier years there?
It depends on which weight we have. We're fortunate enough for some of our weights to be 2 or 3 deep, and other weights not so much. But there again, buy-in, getting them to understand, try to keep them goal-oriented, keep them worrying about themselves, and just those little messages every day of getting them to understand the process, and it's different than it was, like you said, 3-4 years ago. A kid at that level would come in and be a 4-year starter, where now, it might be different. Depending on what weight he's at, it might not happen till their junior or senior year, but they should be positioning themselves that when they are the starter, that they should be able to be very, very successful. So just constantly communicating with them. And but it is a challenge. It is a challenge. Being aware of it, I guess, is always the first step. And so we're aware of it and kind of communicating and educating all the time how to handle that. So,
how do you blend the athletes that are coming from maybe a powerhouse program versus the Ohio schools that may have a middling wrestling program? They may have been the best guy in their school's history or something like that. No tradition, not a whole lot of high school coaching, and then you put them in a room with guys from Brecksville, Broadview Heights, or St. Edward or CVCA. How do you meld those type of athletes together?
I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, that's our team right there. we have some guys from those schools, and we have some guys from the other schools, and it's just kind of fun. I don't think it's always the same. I think it's really for us just trying to identify kids where it's important to them, they're passionate about it, and I think then they're a good fit. But yeah, what you're talking about, we have that in our room where they not necessarily came from a powerhouse program, but you saw the talent. Now that they're here, they just keep getting better every single day. So that's pretty awesome to see happen. And then sometimes even some of those kids from those powerhouse programs come in and you see them get better all the time too. So works both ways. Pretty awesome.
Now, you got two guys ranked in the individual rankings as of prior to, I guess, this last weekend's competition. Chris Doyle ranked 5th at 125, and then second ranked in the country, Anthony Arroyo. Talk about those guys and what they have meant to the program.
Yeah, so Chris has been huge. He's been there with Jesse, his first 2 years. And so, those one guy was 25, one guy was 33. And so he got to develop right there behind Jesse. And Chris has been really fun to watch develop, and just kind of had a breakout year last year and just keeps getting better all the time. He's very, very, he's a student. He's constantly, I don't think there's a guy that, he's a mat rat. He puts a ton of time in. Very, very motivated guy, both career-wise and on the mat. And so it's really neat to watch his development, and trying to just really perfect his craft. Like I said, he's just cleaned things up all the time. He took quite a few losses last year, and he's been a little bit better this year early on, and he's constantly working at his craft of getting better. I mean, we're on break right now, and and he's been in the room, so that tells you the type of kid he is. And Anthony's a pretty neat success story as well. And he was never a state qualifier in Ohio. He there again, I think missed state both his junior and senior year by a match, and then freshman year of college missed nationals by a match, and finally got that monkey off his back last year and was able to get to the national tournament and placed 5th. And so he's pretty hungry. They're both pretty motivated guys. They're great leaders. They're hard workers. They do things the right way. So guys are rallying behind them, and they make us better.
As we move forward into the national championship, what the goals and expectations of this team? How do you set them each year, and what is this team's goals and expectations for 2017, 2018?
I think our goals, they're the same. We want to maximize our potential, and I think our potential is, we want to win championships. We want to continue to, be pushing for conference championships, regional championships, and if we're doing that, we're putting ourselves in a position to be a top 4 team. And I think if you're consistently a top 4 team and you put it together in the right day, you're gonna put yourself in a position to win a championship there as well. And we're gonna keep working towards that. And we really just try to work towards our process goals of making sure our habits match what our goals are. And if we're doing that, everything else will fall into place.
Now, as you guys, again, are the host institution for the Division III championships, we're expecting, I guess, a Midwestern-style crowd there in Northeast Ohio, whereas in the past you got to Cedar Rapids or places of that nature. The Luther fans can get a little boisterous with their chants, and same with the Whitewater fans. But now I guess this is a call for the Ohio area schools. Hey, it's your turn. And by a couple years ago, I think some of those Midwestern fans were chanting East Coast timeout when Isaac Dukes took a lunger, and I told him that Case Western Reserve is in Cleveland, which is not the East Coast. East Coast of maybe Lake Erie. Tony Valek, by the way, hates that story. He hates when I tell that story. But the balance of East Coast and Hershey versus the Midwest, it's right there in Cleveland. I mean, what are you expecting from your fan base and from the other schools in the OAC that to put a good amount of butts in the seats?
Well, I think you're going to get both. I'm excited. I think Hershey, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if lacrosse beat the record, but I think Hershey, Pennsylvania, broke the attendance record. So I don't know if lacrosse got it back last year or not. So, wrestling's getting important out this way, and I think, like I said earlier, this is a great location. So, we should be able to draw from the East Coast and the Midwest and meet in the middle, and I know we're going to do our part from the BW fan base. I'm expecting the other OAC schools to contribute as well. And so I think it just seems like the perfect place you look at Division III, you go from the East Coast all the way to pretty much Buena Vista, Nebraska, Wesleyan now. And then you got the one strangler.
Pacific's out there like, right? Hey, what about us?
Yeah. So, I think, Cleveland is going to be a great meeting spot for the Midwest to come in the East Coast and meet right here in Cleveland and have a great championships.
Talk with head coach Jamie Gibbs of Baldwin Wallace. And one of the questions that always comes up when I'm looking at results, hyphen or no hyphen, and can you tell us why?
For Baldwin Wallace?
Yes.
So no hyphen. And I think it happened my first year here, and I can't tell you why.
It's not been that long ago.
I think it has to do with search engine optimization, possibly.
Because I'm
dead serious too.
That's the society we live in.
In my short time here, we went from Baldwin Wallace College to Baldwin Wallace University, and we got rid of the hyphen.
Yeah, it's like, what, with this whole marriage thing, let's just combine our last names without the hyphen. It works for everybody.
I think so.
I mean, maybe not as unique as a story as like the merging between Case and Western Reserve University to create Case Western Reserve right down the road there. But, that's one of those inner copy editor. I'm making sure, okay, there's no hyphen. It's a space. Got to make sure it's consistent. So that's the way it works.
Yeah, we still get it.
All the time.
Yeah, we still get it.
The time we got left, Coach. Any final thoughts? Anything about Baldwin Wallace Wrestling or the Division III championships you'd like the folks to know this coming season?
No, I appreciate you having me. I think people, especially Division III wrestling fans and wrestling fans in general, are going to love Cleveland, Ohio. I know me being an Iowa guy, then being in North Carolina for a short time, my perception of Cleveland wasn't a great one. I kept an open mind about it. It's a great place, great people. Downtown has done a great job of really cleaning things up, and there's just tons of things to do down there. It's a good place right now. So I think wrestling fans are going to be very excited.
Yeah, the worst thing about Cleveland is the Browns. Let's just be honest right now. Oh.
I've got no solution for that one.
No, I mean, there may no longer be a factory of sadness, but oh man, I was a Bucs fan growing up, so I know what painful seasons look like. But I feel for Cleveland Browns. I feel for Brian Cack, man. He's anyway. On that note, I could get a lot of hate mail at the end of this show.
Right. No, I appreciate you having me, Jason. Thanks a lot.
show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.